3 bone-chilling scary stories before midnight rain sounds to haunt your dreams tonight. The clock struck 11 as thunder roared through the night, shaking the very foundations of the old, creaky farmhouse. Rain lashed violently against the windows, as if the storm itself were screaming for attention. In the dim glow of a flickering candle, Sarah huddled beneath a tattered blanket, her heart thumping loudly in her chest, the kind of thump that echoed in her ears like an urgent message from a forgotten past. She had heard the stories. Dark whispers passed around town about that very farmhouse, stories that bled into her dreams and gnawed at her curiosity, like gnats buzzing under her skin. One tale spoke of an apparition, a pale, gaunt figure that roamed the property each night. Others swore they'd seen her standing in the garden, moonlight illuminating her tragic face as she seemed to call out for help, her voice like rusted chains grating on stone. But there was more. There were rumors that whoever dared to sleep here after midnight would wake to find an empty room, but the slightest touch would send a shiver down their spine. Sarah had come for adventure, yet as she listened to the howling wind outside, a cold sweat broke out across her forehead. She knew she was walking a dangerous line. As the wind howled louder, it pried open the shutters with a bang, like a gunshot echoing in the stillness. Sarah jumped, a lump rising in her throat. She peered into the swirling darkness outside, heart racing, and saw nothing. Just the desolate expanse of woods creeping closer, shadows draping like a funeral shroud. Yet, there was a tingle at the back of her neck, the feeling of being watched. A chill crept through her bones, an omen that bedded itself deep, urging her to run. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With a deep breath, Sarah pushed the blankets aside and rose to her feet, the old floorboards creaking beneath her like whispers of the restless dead. She cautiously moved to the window, peering into the storm. But then a flash of lightning illuminated a dark figure standing at the edge of the trees. Was it real, or merely a trick of the light? A gasp escaped her lips, and she stumbled backward, shaking. The stories hadn't prepared her for this moment, a stark reality crashing into her mind, and leaving no room for rational thoughts. In the heart of the tempest, Sarah stood plunged into a sea of terror. Would she dare to uncover the truth about the figure stalking her, or would it unveil secrets that should remain buried? As she clutched the curtain, resolve echoing in her chest, she knew one thing: the night was just beginning. The storm raged on, each crash of thunder reverberating through Sarah's core. She was drawn to the window again. What haunted the tree line? Curiosity battled with fear. She stepped forward, heart pounding as the flickering candle cast shadows that danced ominously on the walls. Then it happened, a sound. A whispering voice that seemed to float on the wind, weaving in and out of the storm's fury. It was faint but unmistakable. "Help me!" It wrapped around her like tendrils of smoke, choking out her courage. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. Was someone out there? Or was it the ghostly woman from the stories, calling out to her in desperate need? "Get a grip," she muttered to herself. She couldn't let fear dictate her actions. Gathering what little bravery she could muster, she snatched the lamp from the table. The soft warmth of its light felt like a fragile shield against the darkness as she flicked the switch. The room brightened, yet something felt off. It was as if shadows bent and twisted further back, hiding secrets just beyond her vision. With her heart a war drum pounding in her ears, Sarah opened the door that led to the porch. The wind howled like a banshee, nearly snatching the lantern from her grasp. The rain soaked her as it poured down, but she fought against it. Each step felt like an eternity, the wooden planks creaking beneath her feet as if the house itself were warning her to turn back. Second thoughts crashed into her mind like the unrelenting rain. What if the stories were true? What if she was about to become another whispered tale in town? The figures stood still at the tree's edge, their features obscured by the shadows of the stormy night. Fear clawed at her gut, but Sarah's curiosity pushed her forward. "Hello?" she called, her voice barely audible over the raging storm. She took another step and then froze. The figure turned sharply, and for a fleeting moment, she caught a glimpse of a pallid face hauntingly familiar. Suddenly, the figure took a step towards her, moving with an unnatural grace that sent icy fingers down Sarah's spine. "You shouldn't be here," came the voice again, now clearer, yet laced with an eerie tremor. Time seemed to suspend, the air thickening with an unshakable dread. Was this the ghost she had heard about, the one lost between worlds? Or was it something much more sinister? Sarah's instincts screamed for her to retreat, yet her feet remained glued to the spot. A flash of lightning illuminated the figure's eyes, and for a moment, Sarah could see everything reflected in them: desperation, fear, and something darker. She felt pulled into their unsettling depths, a raw connection that rooted her in place. "You have to help me," the voice pleaded, quivering with urgency. The candle in her hand flickered out, plunging her into deep darkness. Panic surged as her breath quickened. She fumbled in the wet night, trying to reignite the flame while her heart raced. And then, silence fell over the storm, a thick cloak that wrapped around her like an embrace. "Help!" she screamed, urgency clawing her voice raw. Just then, the figure lunged forward, an unseen force crashing into her, sending her sprawling onto the ground. Breathless, Sarah pushed herself up, her eyes wide with terror as she searched the now empty space. Had she truly seen what she thought she had? Or was it all a product of her mystified imagination, blending with the shadows and rain? "Don't forget," echoed through the air, the whisper lingering like smoke around her. But what did she need to remember? The night wasn't finished with her yet. She could feel it. It pressed against her skin like a shroud, stirring her instincts. What would happen if she didn't act? What dark secrets lay hidden among the ruins of this forsaken farmhouse? The clock's constant tick echoed in her mind, racing toward the witching hour. Trembling, Sarah realized she had to find the truth, whether she was ready for it or not. But then, just as the thought crystallized, a shadow flickered past her. She spun around, heart in throat, knowing the only thing scarier than lurking near the truth was facing it. What lies in wait just beyond the edge of the storm? The air crackled with tension, the faintest of echoes from the figure still reverberating in her mind. "Help me!" those words hung heavy in the darkness, mixing with the distant sounds of the storm. Sarah's heart raced. She was alone, yet her instincts screamed that she wasn't. Taking a shaky breath, she stumbled back toward the porch, her mind trying to rationalize what had just happened. Maybe it was an illusion, an effect of the storm and her frazzled nerves. But something deep inside her stirred with a relentless urgency, pushing her forward. "Think. What did I just see?" she whispered to herself, voice trembling. It had felt so real. The pale, desperate face, the urgency in that voice. How could she help when she didn't even know who or what she was dealing with? With a swift resolve, Sarah scanned the porch for some light, any sign of clarity amid the chaos. Just to the side of the swing, among the muddy footprints, lay an old flashlight half covered in muck. She grasped it with determination, shaking it free of the dirt before clicking the button. A dim beam pierced through the rain, revealing the objects of her surroundings: chipped wood, creeping vines, and a world that felt entirely alive. "Come on, just breathe," she coaxed herself, wiping the condensation from the flashlight lens as the wind howled around her. There was no running to safety, something gripped her more than fear ever could. She felt an innate pull toward the tree line, a magnetic force that threatened to unravel her. As she stepped off the porch and plunged into the downpour again, every drop soaked her skin but masked her fiery determination. "I'm not afraid," she declared, though uncertainty clawed at her. The trees loomed like sentinels, heavy and oppressive in the dark. The flashlight beam flickered rhythmically, catching thick spider webs strung across the branches. Closer now, she glimpsed an abnormal shift in the wind, the tree leaves rustling like whispers conspiring against her. "What do you want?" she shouted, desperate for a response. The answer came not in words but in movement. Shadows swayed and flickered, a swift rustle through the thicket sending chills racing through her spine. Sarah poised herself, sweat trickling down her neck as she steadied her breath. Suddenly, the flashlight died. Darkness enveloped her. Panic rose, sharp and unforgiving. She spun around, the storm swallowing her cries. "No! Come back!" Desperation thrummed through her veins. "I'm not done yet." Using her hands to navigate through the untamed terrain, she pushed deeper into the thicket, feeling her way through the branches and underbrush. The storm's roar filled her ears, drowning her thoughts, yet the murmurs returned sickly sweet, laced with menace. "Help, help, help!" tears mixed with rain as she fought against her instincts to run. "I need to find you," she yelled at the night. No one answered. Her fingers snagged against something, a piece of fabric cold and tattered, like a relic. She tugged it free, heart racing as she caught a glimpse of a familiar blue pattern hidden among the roots. Her breath seized. It was part of her grandmother's shawl, lost years before. How can this be? She took a step back, and something from the dark, from deep in the woods, stirred. Sarah, the voice was stronger now, firmer yet desperate, echoing through the storm like thunder, slamming into her with force. The ground began to tremble beneath her, the earth shifting. She stumbled, instinct propelling her to regain her footing. Something was rising from the ground, a figure, but it reeked of sorrow and shadows. "What are you?" she gasped, barely able to comprehend the form that flickered before her, merging light and dark. As it twisted and contorted, Sarah felt as if she teetered on the brink of something terrifying and profound. "Remember why you came here," the figure urged, but what did that mean? Then, just as quickly as it had begun, the vision fizzled out, leaving Sarah standing in solitude, breathing heavily in the fierce storm. An uneasy stillness wrapped around her, pulling her deeper into the world of secrets and shadows. The light of a memory flickered in her mind. Remember, before she could piece it all together, a piercing scream ripped through the night sky, not hers but from somewhere deep within the woods. What was that? Panic surged as she realized the night was far from over, the storm still gathered, waiting. Standing there, heart pounding, Sarah knew she could no longer back away. What awaited her in the depths of the woods? Would the whispers lead her to the truth or further into madness? The storm raged on, relentless and wild, yet Sarah stood frozen in the eye of its fury. The scream echoed through the trees, and her heart thrummed loudly in her chest, a drumbeat of dread. She fought to steady herself against the rising tide of fear. "Just move," she whispered to herself. Compelled by the taunting echoes of the unseen, she took a resolute step forward into the woods, every ounce of courage colliding with the encroaching darkness. The trees shifted ominously, twisted shapes looming above as if they were guardians of some terrible secret. Every crack of a branch underfoot sent shivers racing down her spine. She strained her ears amidst the storm, trying to discern the direction of that ghastly scream, the haunting cry that had split the night air. It tugged at her, weaving between the thunderclaps and the howling winds, drawing her deeper into the damp embrace of the forest. "I have to find out," she murmured, the words slipping between clenched teeth. The world around her felt too close, as if the branches were reaching out to snatch her back. The beam from the flashlight flickered on, illuminating fleeting glimpses of the path ahead, moss-covered stones, wet leaves glinting in the dim light. But shadows danced just outside her range, always slipping away as she moved. Then came the whispers again, softer now, curling around her like thick tendrils of smoke. "Sarah, Sarah, who is there?" she called out, defiance shaking her voice. "Show yourself." The wind responded with a low moan, and then she heard it, a rustling, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled through the leaves. Dread slithered down her back, pooling at the base of her spine as she realized she wasn't alone. The shadows shifted more prominently now, gathering in the periphery of her vision, swirling with intent. As she turned slowly, the flashlight's beam illuminated an incomprehensible sight. A figure stood there, shrouded in mist and shadows, its form wavered like it was stitched from the very essence of the night. Her body screamed to turn back, but curiosity held her frozen in place. Help me, the voice, familiar yet foreign, flooded her senses. It wasn't just a plea, it was desperation wrapped in pain, like a ripple in time. "You've come here for a reason. Who are you?" Sarah dared to ask, her breath hitching. "What do you want from me?" I'm trapped," the figure whispered. "You have to remember. The truth is buried underneath." The ground shook harder, the forest around her vibrating with a primal energy. Trees swayed like lost souls. "No more games," she shouted, frustration tumbling into fear. "Tell me what I need to do." The specter shifted closer, its face now partially revealed a stark resemblance to her grandmother's features, but marred by sorrow and ghostly light. Sarah stumbled back, heart pounding as echoes of memories long buried clawed their way to the surface. The cries of anguish intensified, mingling with the storm, reaching a fever pitch that threatened to drown out everything else. Help, stop. Stop!" she yelled, clutching her head in agony. The ground felt alive beneath her, swirling with the weight of untold stories. Above the cacophony, another voice pierced through, sharp and clear. "Sarah! You need to leave. It's not safe." A flicker of hope ignited within her, only to be extinguished by the figure's mournful gaze. "You can't run from the truth." Before she could respond, the earth beneath her buckled. She lost her balance, teetering on the edge of chaos. The wind whipped around her like a frenzy of hands, and the world around began to fade to gray. In that instant, a vision flashed through her mind, a memory interlinked with the fabric of her reality. A dark room, whispered secrets, and the same shawl that connected them. Just as the darkness threatened to consume her, something broke through the veil. A flicker, a spark of light in the distance, caught her eye. It pulsed like a heartbeat, beckoning her. "Sarah!" The voice screamed again, insistent, urgent. Desperation took over as Sarah wrestled against the whirlwind. "Is it really you?" she cried, hands outstretched, but the shadows would not release her so easily. They tightened their grip as the figure wailed. "Remember, Sarah. Dig deep. The truth will set you free." And then everything fell away, with a crashing roar. Silence replaced the chaos as Sarah vanished into the darkness, leaving nothing but the echo of her name trapped amongst the trees. Was this the end? Or just the beginning of an even greater revelation? The woods held tight to their secrets, waiting for her return. Sarah's eyes flew open, but the darkness pressed in on her, heavy and suffocating. She gasped for breath, her heart racing, memories crashing against her like waves. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was still lost within the forest, even as she lay on a cold, hard surface. Instinctively, she sat up, squinting into the void. "Hello?" Her voice was barely a whisper, swallowed by the silence that stretched around her. The air was thick and still, a stark contrast to the chaotic storm that had just consumed her. She reached out, her fingers brushing against smooth wood. Confusion clouded her thoughts. She had been in the woods, hadn't she? And now where was she? Panic surged, she had to snap out of it. Gathering her wits, Sarah felt the walls closing in. There was an echo in the distance, faint and warped, like a long-forgotten melody. It haunted her, sending chills prickling over her skin. With resolve, she rose to her feet, the surface underfoot creaking with her every step. As she moved, she noticed the dim light spilling in through a narrow window, barely illuminating the space. Dust hung in the air, catching the glimmer of light, making it feel as if time had forgotten this place. She was in a decaying room, cluttered with shadows that whispered secrets in a language only the walls could understand. "Where am I?" she muttered, scanning the room for clues. Old photographs lined the walls, faces peering down at her with vacant eyes. They looked familiar, yet she couldn't place them. Strangers and family all intermingled into a chilling gallery of her past. The echo grew louder, twisting into frantic whispers that prickled at her mind. Sarah follow. She hesitated. Who was calling her? The urgency in the voice felt like cold fingers gripping her heart. I'm coming, she shouted, though doubt crept into her soul. If this was another trap, would she be ready for the consequences? She stepped closer to the door, which stood slightly ajar. As she opened it, it creaked dreadfully, emitting a musty scent of mildew that made her gag. The hallway outside stretched into more darkness, the air thickening into a cloying silence. With a pounding heart, Sarah took a deep breath and stepped out. Each footfall echoed with a hollow sound as shadows seemed to taunt her from the corners. You're not alone, they whispered. You need to remember. The walls were lined with more photographs. This time they were of her grandmother, younger and vibrant, surrounded by people Sarah didn't recognize. Her grandmother's face was warmer, radiant even, but something lingered behind her smile, a shadow in her eyes. Why are you here? She whispered to the fading images. Her fingers brushed against one of the photographs, and a jolt coursed through her. Memories surged in like a flood, wrapping around her mind like binding chains. She gasped at the sudden onslaught of thoughts. Secret meetings in dark rooms, a hidden shawl, hushed conversations. The truth lay just out of reach, always flickering like a dying star. Suddenly, a loud crash came from down the hall, pulling her back into reality. Heart racing again, she turned, instinct screaming at her to flee. The storm outside had ceased, replaced by a heavy silence, too heavy, too pregnant with anticipation. Voices drifted from up ahead, melodic yet sinister, harmonizing in a dreadful symphony. You've waited long enough, they echoed, weaving through the air. The truth has always been in front of you. Who's there? Sarah shouted, terror creeping in, freezing her in her tracks. Show yourself. Laughter danced through the air, cold, brittle, and all too familiar. It was cacophony from the past, twisting into something unrecognizable. She would have given anything for the safety of the forest, for the chaos of the storm. Then, without warning, the flickering light bulb overhead shattered, plunging her into complete darkness. The voices grew louder, voracious whispers expanding to fill the void around her. It's time to find out what really lies beneath. And in that oppressive dark, Sarah realized the storm was far from over. It had only just begun. What awaited her in the shadows? She had to muster every ounce of courage as she edged closer to the unknown ahead. But would she survive the truth? Darkness clung to Sarah like a heavy fog, swirling around her, obscuring all sense of direction. She could barely speculate where she was headed, fear shaking her legs, but those whispers drove her forward. Find the truth, find the truth. She pressed against the wall, feeling the cool, damp texture beneath her fingertips. The air grew thick, as though every breath required a struggle. Her heart thudded loudly in her chest, drowning out the whispers, yet their chilling cadence lingered in her ears like a haunting melody. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she noticed a faint shimmer ahead, a flicker of light. Tentatively, Sarah stepped closer, her movements slow as if any sudden motion would shatter the fragile atmosphere around her. With each step, the walls seemed to pulse and breathe. Suddenly, she froze. The echoes of laughter morphed, twisting into anguished cries. Cold sweat broke on her brow as the sound twisted her stomach into knots. No. No, she whimpered, pressing her hands against her ears, desperate to drown it out. But the cries persisted, building into a cacophony of despair that pushed her toward the glimmering light. In a single breath, Sarah broke through the dark veil and stepped into a small room, illuminated by flickering candles casting soft shadows that danced like trapped spirits. The room felt oddly intimate, filled with odd artifacts and trinkets that cluttered every counter, each a relic from a time long past. The air smelled of burnt wax and something metallic, a scent she couldn't place but found intoxicating. At the center of the room stood a mirror, old, warped, and jagged around the edges. It seemed to hum, vibrating with an energy that beckoned to her. Compelled, Sarah approached it, her heartbeat echoing against the stillness. The reflection that stared back at her was not entirely her own, it flickered between her and a figure shrouded in shadow, someone familiar yet utterly foreign. "Grandma?" Sarah breathed, searching the mirror for answers. That familiar warmth radiated from the image, but a shadow loomed, now flaring in sharp contrast to the porcelain face she adored. "Remember, you must remember." The reflection whispered urgently, but the shadows loomed larger, swallowing the kind voice whole. "Where are you?" Sarah shouted, desperation seeping into her voice. But the answer eluded her, flickering like the failing light of the candles. She felt a cold breeze sweep through the room, as if the shadows were drawing closer. Frantically, she pressed her palms against the glass. It shivered, and the mirror rippled. "Reveal it!" she cried, her voice trembling. Suddenly, the room shook. Dust cracked off the ceiling as the walls seemed to constrict, pushing inward. The mirrors morphed, showing images of her past happy moments twisted into grotesque versions of themselves. Laughter from family gatherings distorted into mocking peals. Shadows of people she loved moving through the memories, their features increasingly indistinct. "No! Stop! Show me the truth!" she screamed, terror and rage spilling over. With a surge of adrenaline, she slammed her fist against the mirror's surface. The glass shattered, sending shards flying in all directions, each one swirling with memories and pain. The world around her imploded, collapsing into itself. She was falling into the storm of her own shattered past, the shadows chasing her down. Through the chaos, a solitary voice called from the darkness, "You can't escape the truth, Sarah." And then, silence. Was it over? Or had she finally crossed the threshold into absolute darkness? In the stillness, Sarah lay terrified, her breath hitching in her throat. What awaited her now, buried beneath the weight of shattered illusions? She could sense that whatever lay ahead was waiting and watching. The storm may have calmed outside, but deep inside, Sarah's own tempest raged on, restless and hungry for answers. Would she dare to confront the lurking horror, or would fear drag her deeper into the shadows? A single tear rolled down her cheek as uncertainty clawed at her heart, her mind racing with one crucial question: what was the truth she truly feared to uncover? Beneath the weight of the silence, Sarah felt the floor beneath her shift. With a violent jolt, she came back to herself, gasping for air. No longer was she in the candlelit room, but sprawled on cold, hard stone. The darkness, thick and palpable, wrapped around her like a suffocating embrace. Her pulse raced. Panic clawed at her throat, a visceral gnawing that nearly choked her. "Where am I?" she mumbled, searching for any sign of life, any glimpse of light to push back the encroaching shadows. The air was laced with a metallic tang, reminiscent of that strange scent from before, igniting a primal instinct in her. The whispering returned, louder, echoing in her mind, "Find the truth." Almost resentful now, it chased her through the corridors of her consciousness, urging her down paths she feared to tread. With effort, she pushed herself up, nails digging into the rough stone to steady her trembling body. A faint glow flickered at her periphery, and the sound of dripping water dared her to lean into the shadows. Each breath felt like it might be her last, the air thick enough to cut. Creeping forward, she spotted the source of the glow. It was a door, slightly ajar, a feeble light spilling from within. As she reached out for the handle, her hand shook violently, forcing her to pause. What if this was a trap, another illusion waiting to ensnare her? A rustle behind her set her heart racing. Spinning around, she was met by the silhouette of a figure in the dark, standing motionless, the air charged with tension. A scream caught in her throat. "Who's there?" Silence hung thick between them until finally, a voice cut through the shadows, low and dripping with menace. "You should have left it alone, Sarah." It felt like a knife to her ribs. "You know my name?" "Of course," the figure continued, stepping into the faint light with a smirk twisting their lips, revealing familiar features that sent chills racing down her spine. "I know all about you. About your family. About your past. Get away from me," she shouted, adrenaline pumping through her veins. She backed away, but the figure advanced, undeterred. "You wanted the truth, didn't you? You were so desperate to uncover the past. Now, you're living it. Stop." Panic surged within her. "You're not real." A hollow laugh echoed around them. "What is real, Sarah? What have you forgotten?" She stumbled backward, the weight of her own memories crashing down around her. Images flashed before her eyes, the sunny backyard of her childhood home, her grandmother's comforting embrace, the way everything shifted the day her family fell apart. Each recollection twisted into the figure's face, distorting and reshaping her truth into something terrifying. A sudden realization gripped her. The whispers weren't just echoes, they were memories, calling to her through the darkness. With a surge of determination, Sarah turned to the small gap of light from the door once more. She had to know. She stepped forward defiantly, ready to push through whatever lay ahead. The figure laughed again, a sound so cruel it felt like ice in her veins. "You cannot escape your past, Sarah. It shapes everything." Before she could reply, the ground beneath her buckled, pulling her toward the abyss. She lunged for the door, the light promising a pathway to the truth. But would the truth set her free, or would it shackle her forever? As she fell into the light, Sarah couldn't help but wonder, had she made the right choice? What awaited her on the other side, and would she find the answers she craved, or unleash a horror beyond her wildest fears? The blinding light enveloped Sarah, swallowing her whole. She plummeted through the radiance, her stomach flipping as if she were on a roller coaster ride, every nerve ending screaming to turn back. The world twisted, colors swirling like a painter's palette gone mad before everything thudded to a halt. With a gasp, she landed hard on a wooden floor. Instantly, she felt the chill seep through her clothes, a stark contrast to the warmth of the light. She blinked, taking in her surroundings, a dimly lit room, its walls lined with shadows that danced ominously. "Welcome home," that familiar voice slithered through the air like smoke, coiling around her heart and squeezing. Sarah's eyes darted around. The room was filled with furniture covered in white sheets, ghostly figures waiting for a master to reclaim them. Memories flooded back. This place. She recognized it all too well, the family home she had long been forced to forget. "What do you want from me?" she shouted into the space, her voice echoing as if the house held its breath. The shadows seemed to thicken, pulsating with energy, drawing closer. "I want you to remember," the figure emerged from the dark, deeper now, more defined. It was like staring into a warped mirror. "You must face what you've buried, the pain you've tried to outrun." Gritting her teeth, she summoned the courage to step forward. "I'm done running." The figure laughed, a low, sinister sound that echoed off the walls. "Are you? Because the truth is far worse than you can imagine." Suddenly, the sheets erupted into a flurry. Images, fragments of her past, swirled around her. The laughter of children playing, the distant sound of a mother's lullaby, and then a scream. It was her own voice, filled with anguish, piercing through the laughter like a knife. "Stop it!" she cried, covering her ears, but it was no use. The memories crashed down, relentless in their pursuit. The day everything shattered loomed before her, vivid and raw. I can't relive this." "You must." The figure insisted, stepping closer, a twisted mockery of the past she had tried to erase. "What was lost must be found, Sarah." The room darkened, the specter drawing nearer, its presence suffocating. Sarah could feel her breath quickening, the shadows reaching for her, fingers of darkness threatening to entrap her in a web of her own making. "No. I want to let you take me again." She shook her head, desperation clawing her voice as she stumbled backward. The walls seemed to pulsate in response to her fear, the air thick with sorrow. Running 1T save you, the voice coiled around her, sickly sweet, each word heavy with foreboding. You have to confront it. Remember. Revive it. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the other side of the room, followed by a slight trembling. The shadowy figure halted, its gaze shifting toward the noise, uncertainty flickering in its dark eyes. What was that? Sarah's voice trembled. She turned to follow the sound, adrenaline sparking her instincts. Something you didn't put to rest. Fear gripped her heart in a vice as she edged toward the source of the commotion. Each step felt like a leap into the abyss. Was she walking into freedom or straight into another kind of hell? And then she heard it, a low, guttural sound, like a beast awakening from a long slumber, filled with malice and hungry for revenge. What is in there? She whispered, dread curling like smoke in her chest. Something that holds the answers and your fate, the figure hissed. The door behind her rattled as if something trapped inside craved to escape. The choice loomed over her, heavy and suffocating. To face what lay within or to turn and run once more. The figures around her murmured in anticipation, the room alive with tension. Which path would she choose? Would she dare to confront the nightmare, or would she flee and surrender to the shadows that hunted her? Sarah's heart hammered in her chest as she stared at the rattling door. The shadows around her seemed to pulse with her fear, each breath she took reverberating through the room like a drumbeat of dread. She could almost feel the presence behind that door, a dark force whispering promises of despair and revelation in equal measure. Open it, the figure urged, its voice a hypnotic blend of malice and enticement. You need to know. You long to know. No, I can't. She gasped, shaking her head violently as if to dispel the haunting memories that threatened to rise alongside her deepest fears. Whatever it is, I don't want it. A low growl echoed from within, ripping through her resolve. The sound was primal, a reminder of a terror she dared not confront. Somewhere in the depths of her mind, she felt the heavy weight of curiosity and fear battling to take control. But was she strong enough to handle what awaited her behind that door? As the door rattled again, a voice ripped through the suffocating darkness, more of a raw scream, primal and filled with anguish, a sound she knew all too well. It was her own voice, echoing her pain from the depths of her past. Stop! She shouted, her voice trembling as if defiance could indeed keep the dark at bay. You hear that? It's trying to bring me back. It's calling you to the truth, the figure hissed, its shimmering form flickering unnaturally. The truth you buried deep. To let go, you must face it. The chill from the floor seeped into her bones as memories whispered in the corners of her mind, laughter turning to screams, warmth morphing into desolation. Her knees wobbled, but she did not fall. A flicker of resolve ignited inside her. Everybody has a monster, she suddenly said, her voice steady now. But I won't let mine have power over me anymore. With one swift movement, Sarah hurled herself at the door, her hand clasping the cold handle. The sensation rippled through her like a shockwave, a mixture of fear and determination. Ignoring the voice that screamed for her to stop, she threw the door wide open. What she saw stilled her breath. The room beyond was not empty, it was a swirling vortex of memories. Figures of her past emerged, lost moments swirling together like a tempest, faces she adored, memories she cherished, and moments steeped in sorrow and regret. They merged and spiraled, flickering like the weak flames of a dying fire. Mom? She breathed, spotting her mother's distinct silhouette standing at the center, her expression a blend of anguish and love. As if sensing her gaze, the figure turned. Sarah. The voice was soft yet filled with so much pain. Why did you leave me? No. Sarah cried out, stepping backward as that familiar ache clawed its way up from her chest. I didn't mean to, but before she could finish, the shadows surged toward her, wrapping around her like a storm, pulling her into the heart of the memories now swirling with incredible speed. Face it. The figure called, its voice drowning under the chaos. You cannot escape the truth. Embrace your past. The noise enveloped her, deafening now screams, laughter, cries for help all blending into a cacophony of terror. Images flashed like lightning in her mind, illuminating the faces she had buried, innocence lost, love betrayed, and the deepest darkness threatening to consume her whole. With desperation surging through her veins, she closed her eyes, fighting against the memories that clawed at her soul. She knew she had to confront them, but every instinct screamed to flee, and as the whirlwind of sound and shadow reached a terrifying crescendo, Sarah mustered every ounce of courage. I choose to remember. I choose to face it. A sharp snap. Silence took her, as she stood alone, trembling, at the edge of the vortex. But what awaited her on the other side? What have you done? The figure hissed, chaos swirling as she summoned all her strength. Before she could form a thought, a blinding light burst from the center, pulling her in with such an undeniable force that Sarah barely had time to prepare for what was coming next. Would she seize the truth or fall deeper into the shadows? The brilliant light enveloped Sarah, a warmth that traveled through her body despite the coldness of the memories swirling around. In that moment, she became weightless, suspended between realization and reflection. The scream of pain, the haunting laughter, the desperate cries faded into a dull murmur as she was pulled back into the essence of her past. She felt the pull of every emotion she had buried deep within, but instead of fear gripping her heart, it transformed into a surge of courage. Face it. Echoed a fragment of the figure's voice, but this time it sounded different. There was no malice, only urgency, pushing her toward the core of the truth she had run from for so long. Sarah opened her eyes and, with every ounce of strength she had left, broke through the veil of swirling memories. The memory solidified into a scene she hadn't seen in years. A sun-drenched backyard, children laughing, her grandmother's gentle smile. The warmth washed over her and with it, the painful memory of that day emerged, a day etched in her soul. Shadows danced along the edges, but they seemed less threatening now, their forms shaped by the reality of her past, rather than the specters of her fears. "Mom," she whispered, searching the crowd of memories, her heart racing as the shadows shifted into forms she recognized. Her mother, her friends, her childhood home. Everything she loved, everything she had lost. Suddenly, her vision sharpened on the dark figure, an image of anguish that twisted Sarah's heart. It was her, distorted by pain and regret, but undeniably her. "Why did you leave?" The whisper pierced through the stillness, echoing in her mind. "I didn't mean to." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "I thought if I didn't remember, it would hurt less. But I see now running away only trapped me in shadows." The figure recoiled, an expression of acknowledgement flickering across its face. Shadows began to recede, fear dissolving like mist in the sun. "You've taken the first step. Now you must forgive. Not just others but yourself." As if in response, the memories began to change, light breaking through each loop of her past. Her grandmother stood there, arms wide open. "You're stronger than you know, Sarah. You are not defined by your mistakes, but by how you rise above them." With a deep breath, Sarah embraced the pain that clung to her heart. She was ready. "I forgive you," she whispered to herself before saying it to the past as well. "I forgive you all." As she spoke those words, the shadows twisted and writhed, releasing her from their grasp. The voices once more faded into echoes of love. The dark figure began to dissolve, its sorrow turning into light as it melded into the vibrant colors of her memories. "I'm free!" Sarah shouted, and in that release, she felt an incredible weight lift. The backyard was alive again, laughter ringing out, warmth embracing her whole, with colors brighter than they had ever been. The storm outside subsided and the sunlight broke through the clouds, shining down and illuminating everything. Sarah's heart swelled, the darkness moving to the fringes of her perception. She had stepped from the shadows into the brilliance of her renewed spirit. She was no longer chasing ghosts or haunted by the past. Instead, she embraced her heritage, good and bad. As she turned away from the clearing, ready to leave the memories behind, she could feel a sense of peace enveloping her. The farmhouse was still there, but now it felt like a monument, a testament to resilience and change. Each raindrop that fell from the sky seemed to whisper encouragement, urging her toward a future filled with hope. Sarah took a deep breath, the air rich with possibility, and stepped into the light. The shadows were gone, the weight of silence transformed into solace. She was ready to move on, ready to begin again, but one last thought lingered. Those who still wandered the darkness needed the light too. There were others out there, stuck just like she had been. A fiery resolve ignited in her chest. She would share her story, help those who had grown lost in their past. This was not just her victory but the beginning of a mission to light the way for others to follow. Therefore, she vowed to seek out those trapped in their own darkness, to tell them they too could find the light. "It's time to remember," she declared, a whisper of strength igniting within her fiercely. But before you go, don't wait even one more second to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and support our community. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about this unexpected ending. And I challenge you to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. We're all in this together. You need to show your support and keep the stories coming.